we're getting into the final leg of the journey. The final leg of the journey. Yeah. Let's take a look at the techniques used. We need to know a lot about these techniques because the third part of your essay, the last body paragraph, will be on a dramatic technique. You know the essay structure, don't you? Don't you?
Sir.
Yeah. So you know you're gonna have to comment on some technique used. Maybe they will give you a technique that you have to comment on, or maybe you will get a chance to choose which technique you want to discuss in relation to an earlier point in the essay. So let's do this. We got not that many, just like 6. Pretty quick, yeah? So we got dramatic irony. Dramatic irony. This occurs when the audience knows something that the characters do not. This technique is central in Twelfth Night, especially with Viola's disguise as Cesario. The audience is aware that Cesario is really Viola, but the other characters such as Olivia and Orsino remain unaware. And what is the effect of this? We have to be able to discuss not just the device itself, but what it does. Well, the audience, let's see, this creates what? Humor, tension, and confusion, especially when characters express feelings toward Viola, believing that she's a man. We see how Orsino interacts with Viola, thinking she's a man. We see how Olivia falls in love with Viola, thinking she's a man. Dramatic irony when we have information that the characters don't have. Yeah. Do you think this is a very effective device in this play? Do we see it a lot?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What are some other things that we understand that the characters don't understand?
Another part in the play that we saw dramatic irony, I believe, would be Sebastian's existence. As we, as the audience, we learn early on that Viola's twin brother Sebastian is alive, though Viola believes he is dead.
True.
And then we were aware that Maria and Sir Toby, they wrote the fake love letter to trick Malvolio into thinking Olivia loves him, but Malvolio didn't know that Olivia didn't actually love him.
Good. So that whole scheme with the letter, that was actually quite funny because we were in on the joke. The audience, knew what was up, but Malvolio was in the dark. So that's dramatic irony. Yeah. Very good. Very good. And also with Sebastian, the fact that there was Viola and Sebastian both on the stage at different times. Everybody else thought they were the same person. And so there was so much confusion. But we, the audience, knew they're two different people. So that would have made it quite funny. Because everybody else, would be unaware that they're twins. I guess they look so much alike that they're they're like the same exact person. That's a little, I don't know if that's realistic, but that would make for some fun and some frustration too. It's not Viola. Open your eyes. I can imagine being a little bit frustrated at the other characters who wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Yeah, the dramatic irony creates a lot of tension that is kind of satisfied at the end when all the characters figure out who is who. Then it's like, okay, I get it now. It creates that aha moment at the end, right? Yeah. All right, the next one, mistaken identity. This drives much of the plot and humor. Viola's disguise as Cesario leads to Olivia falling in love with her, as we just mentioned, while Orsino confides in Cesario about his feelings for Olivia. Mistaken identity, thinking that somebody is somebody else. When Sebastian, Viola's twin brother, arrives in Illyria, the confusion escalates as characters mistake him for Cesario, leading to humorous situations, such as Olivia marrying Sebastian thinking he's Cesario. So we can definitely talk about how mistaken identity creates humor in the play, right? And what is really interesting about this play's use of mistaken identity is we get like 2 levels of it, because we have Sebastian. People think that Sebastian is Cesario, and people don't know that Cesario himself is also a fake persona because it's actually Viola. So you can imagine the double layer of confusion. Viola becomes Cesario. Cesario becomes Sebastian, right? Looks like Sebastian. So even the audience might struggle to keep up with who is whom in this play. Yeah? Very interesting. Any other problems caused by mistaken identity that you can think about?
I think one problem would be faced when Malvolio was in the prison. Father Beste came to pretend he was somebody else.
Yes. And that also leads back to the theme of madness, right? Malvolio thought he was going insane. The fool dressed up as what? Sir Topaz. And that really tricked Malvolio. We have two characters thinking they've gone literally mad in this play. Sebastian and Malvolio at different points. Yes, Octavia.
Sir, about the mistaken identity. I believe another part in the play where this comes to show would be when Antonio mistakes Viola slash Cesario for Sebastian in Act 3, Scene 4. When Antonio, who is obviously devoted to Sebastian, sees Cesario, which he thinks is Sebastian being confronted by the others, and he rushes in to help, thinking Cesario is Sebastian. And when Viola asks Cesario doesn't recognize him until...
Yeah, you got cut off at the end there, Octavia, or you did finish?
Sir, I finished after I said Antonio feeling betrayed.
Right. So we see a lot coming from people thinking that people are other people. That's a big part of this play. Yes, Faris.
I just thought about something, but do correct me if I'm wrong. I thought about Festi, which was interesting because the characters in the play view him as a fool, but he's one of the most cleverest characters in the play itself. He also contributes to the confusion, often playing on the characters' mistaken beliefs and creating humorous situations. Like, for example, the interaction with Feste and Olivia, if I remember correctly, pertaining to the reason why Olivia would not marry someone for 7 years, if I remember.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So we could connect fool actually to both mistaken identity as a device and dramatic irony. And notice that mistaken identity is both a device and a theme. That's straight, right? It's a device because Shakespeare uses this as a tool in the play, but also it's an idea that is explored by the play. So that's interesting. So yeah, fool's identity as a stupid person is mistaken because he's actually quite wise. And then there's some dramatic irony because we know that fool is quite wise, while other characters might think he's as stupid as he looks. All right, nice. Next we have some wordplay and puns, and Feste and what's his name, Toby, they go to town with these, kind of making jokes with the double meanings of words. Shakespeare's use of language, including wordplay, puns, and double entendres. That's where we have one sentence having two meanings, usually one being a little risque or sexual, while the other sounds okay. Double entendres. Rappers have to use this a lot if they want to say that they're good rappers. You have to say something and it can have multiple layers of meaning, right? So these are used, and this is a hallmark of Shakespeare's comedic style. He uses this play on language to really make people laugh. Characters like Feste frequently engage in witty exchanges and clever wordplay, often pointing out the absurdities, the craziness of the situations, or making insightful observations about the other characters. Sir Toby, Maria, and Sir Andrew also indulge in bawdy humor, especially with, the riskier side of things with Toby, using double meanings to create comedic effect. Now, this one is this one might be difficult to write about only because with the modern English translation, we kind of lose a lot of the jokes that would have been made, right? I think we kind of saw that when we cross-reference the modern English with the older text. We noticed that when we translate to make things easier to understand, we lose some of the humor, some of the jokes, right? Because some, jokes are pretty difficult to translate. Humor is quite difficult to translate. It's the same here in Japan. If something is funny in Japanese, it's not necessarily funny in English, right? When it's translated, it loses the humor. And the same, something might be really funny in English. You try to explain it in Japanese and it's no longer funny. There's no humor in it. The pun doesn't work. So this might be a little bit tough. I highly doubt you're going to get a question that forces you to look at puns, simply because the language is a little bit tough to work. But keep it in mind anyway. If you can remember one or two of Toby's puns, that would be nice. All right, soliloquies and asides. Soliloquies and asides allow characters to express their innermost thoughts and feelings directly to the audience. Viola, in particular, uses soliloquies to reveal her emotional struggle, such as her love for Orsino and the complications her disguise causes. These moments help the audience to connect with her and understand her motivation. Asides are used also to reveal secrets or plans, such as Malvolia's thoughts when he believes Olivia is in love with him. Do we know what soliloquies and asides really are in the first place? Are we good at that?
No, sir. No, sir. I've never heard of this before.
What?
Or never. Never. And I love researching words, so I don't know this word, sir.
Who knows what an aside is and what a soliloquy is in terms of, plays? Yes, Varys, go ahead.
I do know that a soliloquy is from a Nancy's speech. So if I remember correctly, it's basically a speech talking about oneself, if I remember correctly. Although I might be wrong in that. Let me do a quick check.
Well, basically, you're not really wrong. An aside is like sometimes a short remark that the actor on stage, remember it's a play, it's on stage, will actually say directly to the audience. And usually it's funny. So it's called breaking the fourth wall in Hollywood. It rarely happens in movies and TV shows where someone is going to look into the camera and talk to you directly, the person watching. So they do that sometimes in plays where they directly address the audience just for a line or two. That's an aside. A soliloquy now is like it could be like a whole speech where a character is talking to themselves aloud, thinking aloud, so that the audience can hear what they're thinking. Malvolio does this when he reads the letter and he's like, aha, and we get the famous line about greatness being thrust upon some people. He's not talking to another character, is he? He's talking to himself, but aloud so the audience can hear what he's thinking. You got it?
Yes, sir. I think I get it now.
Mm-hmm. So, I think if you want to comment on this, Malvolio might be the best example. Viola is another good example because she talks to herself about the problem she's facing in the love triangle. She's not expressing to another character. She's just talking out loud so the audience members can hear what's in her mind. Malvolio does it as well. It's just a way for us to hear their thoughts. Because we can, sometimes in movies, we just hear a character's thoughts, right? They're not speaking, but we're hearing what they're thinking.
Yes, sir. That's very often.
Yeah, so that's how they do it in plays. In plays, we don't just hear a voice magically without speech. They just make the character talk to themselves, and that's how we hear what they're thinking. So that's pretty much what it is.
Madness, and obviously some form of madness.
I mean, I don't think it's used to portray that they're just so mad they're talking to themselves. Maybe you could relate it, but it's really kind of just the technique the playwright uses to show what someone is thinking, right? Because sometimes it's not appropriate for it to be conversation between two people. For example, Viola wouldn't be talking about her disguise to anybody because it's a secret. So the only way we can know about how she feels is if she talks to herself aloud so we can hear. And that's why it's a dramatic technique, because the playwright uses it as a tool to give us more information. And then when you cross-dress, does that change your identity? Does that allow you to experience the other gender? Because if you dress like the other gender, and then you act like the other gender, and then you're treated like the other gender, then do you become the other gender?
Well, this is some existentialism right here. So
It is, and it's explored in this play. It is explored because we see that Viola is really treated like a man throughout the whole play. She becomes Cesario. It's like it's more than a costume. She puts on a new person, right? So we can look at cross-dressing and disguise and the implications that might have on gender and identity, right? It's quite interesting. All right, subplots. 12th Night features a complex structure of interwoven plots. Wait, let me uncheck that. No more video. Are you seeing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, of interwoven plots and subplots. Do you know what these mean? Plot and subplot?
Or the main problem or event that is supposed to happen, events that happen leading up to the bigger events. So the subplots.
Not really leading up to, but this is like the main storyline. The main storyline is this thing about, Viola, Orsino, Olivia, right? Their whole love situation. That's the main story of 12th Night. But while that story is happening, we have another little story in between, right? Which
Yes, sir.
which is the Malvolio situation. So we kind of have a main story running, but in the meantime, whenever we get a break from that main story, we can get to see bits of this like smaller story happening in the background. And then we have another subplot with Sebastian and Antonio, kind of their own little story.
Also, every time they switch from the certain characters, because there are many main characters in the play, they have to switch between each one of them. So each one of the switches will be a subplot.
It's not that each scene change is a subplot, but we have a main story of like the love triangle, but then within that story, we have some other little stories happening. These subplots not only provide comic relief, but also mirror and contrast the themes of the main plot, such as love, deception, social ambition. Right. So there's fun little stories in between subplots. When you have basically every good show or anime has subplots. We're not just constantly focused on the main event 24/7, right? All right, the final device I want us to look at is music, right? Music is a recurring element in 12th Night. We see it over and over again, reflecting the emotional states of the characters. Orsino, in particular, is closely associated with music as he languishes in his love sickness. Feste the Fool frequently sings throughout the play, with his songs often providing commentary on the themes of love, life, and folly. So we see music as a means of kind of reflecting or projecting what the characters are thinking and what their mood might be. And music also sets the mood for the audience. Right? Just like if you're watching a movie and a sad, slow song comes on, that's going to change your mood as the movie watcher. Maybe you're prepared for a more emotional scene. If some hard rock techno comes on, then perhaps that's going to gear you up for an action scene, right? So music is also... Go ahead.
The start of the music or a little before the action begins.
Yeah, to mentally prepare you.
In 12th Night, the use of music is either to convey messages that are too deep for regular understanding, such as the acts that Feste commit, whereas he makes jokes or folly out of serious matters, but because they're some people tend to overlook them. Also, it is used to cure sickness in some people case, if you understand it. So it is important. Is it a thief? Yeah, the thief in this play.
Yeah. And how music is used is very strange in this play, because usually music is naturally used to set the stage, but this time we see a particular character forcing his own feelings to be displayed by telling somebody which music to play. So unfamiliar?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, that's pretty much 12th Night. That's 12th Night. 12th Night. Don't. We've looked at the techniques, looked at the themes, we've looked at the characters. Yeah. We've looked at the entire plot.